Capcom, what are you doing? Okay, you were hitting home run after home run, okay, cleaning up for the mess that you made with Street Fighter V by releasing the well-regarded Street Fighter VI, having a multi-platform approach to your releases, no longer just simply putting things in certain silos by having console exclusivity. No. Everybody was getting everything that you were putting out, and it was generally regarded with high quality. Dragon's Dogma 2, for as many lingering problems as people have with the microtransactioning on top of it. The gameplay itself, people consider it to be well regarded, but now you just want to go ahead, especially at this point in time. And I kind of get why you're doing it. Also because everybody else in this end of the kiddie pool is also doing that in order to gleam on to the dwindling Western market. It's just, of all times to come out and try to go as woke as possible, knowing that that's really not good for long-term business, really not even good for short-term business, if we're being completely honest, now that the spotlight of Gamergate 2 is specifically over the top of the entire industry. Why would you do this? But here's what we're talking about. Capcom attempts to run PR for Western localizers. Yeah, as if you don't already have a unpopular position to be taking. Now you're going to be trying to stand for an even less popular position itself in the localizer department. And that praises in-house team for keeping games culturally sensitive and promoting inclusivity through language and representation. Why are you doing this? Man? And yet again, throwing their hat into an ongoing discourse surrounding Western localizers, continually disrespecting of Japanese media, rather than committing to ensure accuracy within their own localization team's work. Capcom has instead attempted to put a positive spin on some of the industry's worst practices. Exactly. I find that an interesting frame to be using, because yeah, there you have Ada Wong pulling a gun on Leon Kennedy during the tremendously well-received both critics and gamers alike, the Resident Evil 4 remake, because you want to try to paint that as, oh, look at that, another girl boss taking advantage of the straight white male. It's like, man, it's this side of the reaction to the overly woke aspects of entertainment. I talk about the boy who cries woke all the time, that archetype that's out there. It's there in response to the overtly political messaging of the games companies that are out there, okay? And the moment that you see a woman in power is the moment that you begin to start crying from the rooftops, oh, diversity is killing this game. Oh, look at that, just another girl boss. Like, no, Tomb Raider is deciding to walk the plank thanks to Crystal Dynamics doing some incredibly idiotic stuff. And Capcom, yeah, their localization team, and the fact that we're going to go through their pandering here, definitely shows something, a bad trend that could be starting over there. But the Resident Evil 4 remake and the original, where this scene also happens, guess what, man? Doesn't immediately say that something is woke. It's not that simple. Entering the fray on April 11th by way of a lengthy post published to the official Twitter account to their own in-house localization team, the Resident Evil and Mega Man series what, of all things, why wouldn't you go with Street Fighter? I would think that would probably be, like, outside of Resident Evil, the most popular. Or because it is relevant right now, Dragon's Dogma, like, whatever. But Mega Man? Really? Like, when was the last proper Mega Man release? Anyways, a series developer began their PR play by asserting to players localization isn't just about translating words. It's about adapting the game for a global audience. No, and whenever you see global audience, you know exactly who they're trying to pander to. The people that are never going to be in their audience to begin with. Think cultural nuances, idioms, and regional flair. No, we just kind of want what the developers and the writers intended to begin with. Especially if they're Japanese, because chances are they got a pretty good grasp on storytelling. Good localization makes players feel right at home wherever in the world they are. No, I'm good, because I'm not one of these narcissists that need the entire world bent to my own personal proclivities. If you have a story to tell, okay, just tell it. I reserve the right to be engaged or not engaged by it, but the most important thing is it's your story to tell. Like, I can like characters that I don't necessarily relate to. There can be some characters that I don't think necessarily make the right decisions, but if they do that because they have been well characterized and that is a part of who they are, I can respect a writer, a director, a company for trying to tell a coherent story, something that you don't see that often in media in today's day and age. So here's their long old post. As you can see, there's quite a bit that's right here. So we'll go through some of the cliff notes of it. What is localization? Embark on a global adventure through the lens of game localization. Beyond mere translation, we are diving into art of cultural adaptation, preserving context, and inclusive storytelling. Join us as we unravel the intricacies of that makes games resonate worldwide. Now you just go back, like Capcom, throughout your history. Did the old Mega Mans on NES need proper localization? No, it didn't. Mega Man X? No, of course not. Did Street Fighter, by representing all of the stereotypes from around the world, need proper cultural sensitivity? Did they need to be inclusive? Did E Honda, being a fat sumo wrestler from Japan, throwing his 1,000 hand slaps, does he properly represent Japanese culture? It'd be interesting to see these standards apply to some of the most famous games of all time and see what would end up coming out the other side. Would it be something that would have the legacy that it does, or would it just be the standard slop that we see pour out from the AAA market in general? Localization isn't just about translating words. It's about adapting the game for a global audience. Think cultural nuances, idioms, and regional flair. Good localization makes players feel right at home, wherever in the world they are. What's the importance of context lost in translation? Nah, preserving the vibe is key. I want to deep throat a shotgun. Jokes, references, and even gameplay elements might need a little cultural remix. No, they don't. It's important to find that sweet spot to make sure players get the intended experience without feeling like something got lost in the process. Feeling and vibes in the same paragraph. Who's the global audience that they're trying to pander to by using that language? There you go. Bridging the linguistic gap. Yeah, this is the only part that I actually care about localizers doing the job. If something's written in traditional Japanese, translate it as literally as possible. And if there are some words and phrases that don't have one-to-one translations to English, Spanish, French, wherever you're translating it to, that's incumbent on you to preserve what the intended text was meant to convey. But let's see, what's your interpretation of this? Okay, each language has its unique structure and cultural context. Our teams work to ensure the narrative and dialogue maintain coherence and emotional impact. It's not just about words, it's about capturing the essence of the story in ways that resonate with the target audience. Yeah, that's about the only thing that I don't mind. Yeah, if you just focus on that would be great, instead of cultural sensitivity in characters. Like I said, man, you take a look at that pantheon of Street Fighter 2 characters. How many of those would end up surviving this cultural sensitivity, inclusion, language, and representation? Nobody cares. Adapting humor and wit, by removing it. Humor often relies on cultural references and wordplay, making it a challenging aspect of game localization. Translators must carefully navigate puns, jokes, and cultural references to maintain the intended comedic effect. This requires a deep understanding of the target audience's sense of humor while trying to stay true to the original wit. Now, you're trying to placate to the lowest common denominator, who, again, never turns out at the cash register to purchase your product, and consistency in terminology. Yeah, no. Thanks, I don't care. All of that is absolute AIDS. But oh yeah, another famous rather. It's not infamous at all, except if you're talking about the second iteration, but the Devil May Cry franchise, right? That's a series that would get completely and totally torn to shreds if it had to go through those lenses. You would get a lot more DMCs as opposed to Devil May Cry 5s if these weirdos had their way. But I did say off rip, I do understand why Capcom is going down that path, mostly because, well, console gaming market where Capcom basically cut its teeth, okay? Until, I think, just prior to the pandemic, when the world changed and all that other crap, then they started to embrace PC, and Capcom's, their major, or rather basically their home base when it comes to releasing products now is on PC, but it used to be on consoles. But if you take a look around Japan and outside of Nintendo, which is its own behemoth in and of itself, and likely always will be, and the fact that it's classified in handhelds should also let you know that the console market in general, you take a look, like Xbox has never done well in Japan, and Sony PlayStation, the adoption rate of the PS5 is absolutely in the toilet. You know that if they want to continue to do business on consoles, you kind of got to play that stupid game, and unfortunately, it doesn't lead to anything good, because you take a look at EA, the original studio killer, which everybody knows if your favorite studio ever ends up in some sort of a partnership, ends up getting acquired by EA, you know that there's a shot clock ticking. I am still angry, and like so many other people out there. What happened to BioWare, man? It's so sad. It is so sad. Like the Mass Effect trilogy, because there's only 3 Mass Effect games. The fact that we're never going to see quality like that out of Western gaming. Because I'm old enough to remember back in, the mid stages of the 7th generation PS3, Xbox 360, the fact that, the JRPG was kind of waning in relevance, and Western game developers, spearheaded by the likes of Bethesda, BioWare, that was when the original Dragon's Dogma was coming out. So more Western-focused Mass Effect, Dragon Age, Lost Odyssey type games, those were the ones that were coming out that were starting to take over the industry. And then there was another little franchise that was out there coming out from EA at around that same time in the form of Dead Space, which it really looks like EA is scuttling that once again. Oh my god, they killed off that franchise with Dead Space 3. And now it looks like, okay, after the incredibly well-regarded, to talk about another remake, the Dead Space remake, which just took the original, gave it a new coat of paint, applied some quality of life improvements, and by people who loved the original, seemed to praise the remake heaven and back, wanting to see a Dead Space 2, and well, EA scraps the Dead Space 2 remake due to lackluster sales of the predecessor, reassigns developers to Battlefield and Iron Man solo title. Great. More slop, more EA tripe. Why? Because of trends in the industry. And this is something I'm going to be talking about in a more dedicated video to my favorite game, not just of this year, but oh lord, I'd be hard pressed to put it anywhere outside of top 3, top 2. It's really goddamn good, but the moment that you utter remake, sequel, prequel, reboot in today's entertainment culture, you're immediately met with ugh. You're immediately met with people going, why couldn't you come up with anything original? Like I said, the Dead Space 1 remake was well regarded by the people who played it, but apparently there was a pretty small pool of people who played it, which kind of sucks, because when you do a remake right, and this is something that I've been talking about for a long time as well, when you do it right, when you make a sequel, when you make a remake, when you make a reboot, there's nothing inherently wrong with doing that as long as you have a story to tell, as long as you have a reason to be doing it. And Dead Space, Resident Evil 4 knocked it out of the park with their remakes. Different kinds of remakes, but very much contributed to those franchises. And well, we're dealing in a day and age where there is so much entertainment out there, from the television type scripted entertainment, from what's dribbling out of Hollywood at the cinema, video games in general, from the AAA studios and the AA indie studios as well. There is so much that's out there. So the moment that a consumer is met with something that they intrinsically know is going to be, generally speaking, associated with crap, well-worn, paths treaded, vociferously crap, they're not going to give it an opportunity. And that's terrible, man, because every once in a while, like we've seen with the Fallout TV the series on Amazon, there were reason to believe that that was going to be garbage. But it came out, people gave it a shot, and it's like, you know what, it was pretty damn good. And Dead Space, after, Dead Space 3, and after a long time with nothing going on in that franchise, or a Dead Space remake, oh, why can't you just make Dead Space 4? Or, oh, why can't you just make something unique? If you like Dead Space so much, why just not make something else? Yeah, it was called Callisto Protocol, and it sucked ass. That's probably another big reason why, the remake ended up failing. But it's tough, man, to figure out exactly why certain aspects of the gaming industry are failing like they are, because you have Helldivers 2, Pal World that have completely and totally dominated 2024 so far. Very likely, both of them are very likely to continue as one moves into full release and the other one just continues to maintain and grow upon its success. What's ultimately going to happen with the rest of the industry? Because as profitable as gaming is right now, there's a lot of warning signs that are out there. And even when you have high quality stuff not sell to the masses, that the expertise of these people making a horror game being put onto an FPS, and I don't even know, man, like an Iron Man game, now that there's no Iron Man left in the MCU, who the hell even knows, man, at this point in time, what's ultimately going to happen with the AAA industry. But I think we know where it's going to be heading, and if you take a look at what Capcom's doing, it's not going to be in a profitable direction. So with all that said, thank you all very much for the gift of your time. I've been Don Consuelo. I want you to follow your gut and get after it. Take care, everyone.